What's going on, guys? This is boy DJ the Dead here, back again with another video. Here we're doing a channel I've never heard of, a video I've never heard of, and I just thought it was a interesting concept. So here we go.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare, and also there are some spoilers for Breaking Bad and Succession, and also the original Star Wars. Hey guy, welcome back to my Webkins account. As always, this video is entirely inspired by one Curtis Connor tweet. If you go on YouTube and search for Best Acting Compilation, what you'll probably see is a lot of videos with millions of views that look and sound kind of like this.
Get lazy, I make shit, I hate you!
While most of these scenes are incredible, I think it's kind of silly that we tend to view yelling loudly or crying on camera to be the epitome of a performance. Maybe it's just that anger and sadness are the two most relatable human emotions, or maybe it's cathartic when you have some amount of pent-up frustration to see an actor go absolutely apeshit on a mirror. But there are so many other types of acting that are just as important as the climactic rage outbursts that tend to fly under the radar. One of the biggest ones is just reacting. What are you doing while other people are talking? Are you visibly affected by what they're saying, or are you just waiting for your turn to talk again? It doesn't matter that you nailed all your lines if you just stand there with a blank expression while everyone else is giving theirs. Not only are you going to ruin whatever shot you happen to be in, but you just made it that much harder for your scene partner to focus on what they're saying. Subtle reaction shots can be just as powerful or devastating as the line that they're reacting to. That's what adds any meaning to those words. When you think about it, it doesn't really matter what someone says in a scene if the person they're saying it to doesn't give a shit.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're just like watching, if someone just says something to you on like camera and then you just don't, just no reaction, it's like, what was the point of the what you just said then?
The gravity of words is the impact they have, not necessarily just the words themselves. If something is meant to be a big reveal, but the other person doesn't seem at all shocked, then kind of ruined the surprise, didn't it? I think one reason a show like Succession is so captivating to me is because of how into it every actor is, no matter who's talking. In fact, the show is purposely shot in a way so the actors never know for certain when they might be in frame, so they need to be constantly invested. Some of the cameramen are given free rein to move around the room and zoom in on whoever they want. This makes it so even when only a couple people in a scene are talking, you still know how everyone else feels because you can see it on their face. It's funny, in a lot of ways this is a show about words. It's about clever insults and very deliberate dialogue. Some of the best lines I've ever heard have come from this show.
You can't make a tomlet without breaking some Greggs.
But in spite of that, a lot of the most compelling moments are entirely nonverbal. Whether it's Shiv silently seething at the end of season 3, Logan giving the most subtle smirk at the end of season 2, or the many looks on Kendall's face as he goes through an absolute roller coaster of gaining and losing power, the extreme highs and lows of his drug addiction, all while grappling with the guilt he feels for doing something awful at the end of season 1. And look, this is all just my...
Yeah. I might watch it. Sounds interesting.
My opinion. I'm not a trained actor by any means. The most acting I do is in the little skits that I put in my videos. But for me, it is always so much harder to do a reaction shot than it is to give a line. Because when I'm talking, I'm actively doing something. I have words to say. I can focus on what I'm saying and how to say them. But if I have to just like give a surprised look or look like I'm sad about something that's happening out of frame, it just doesn't come naturally at all. I have to do it 100 times before I can narrow it down to one not terrible take. So because of my own shortcomings, I'm often just as impressed when people give a really good facial expression in a scene as I am, you know, when someone gives like a really cool monologue. Going back to what I talked about in the beginning, rage is something that can be even more interesting when the actor's trying to hold it back, not necessarily just explode on everyone. Jack Nicholson in The Shining, before he goes sicko mode on his whole family, makes it very clear without even saying a word that he is actively snapping. This face is terrifying. He doesn't have to say anything here. He doesn't have to be charging you with an axe. I am scared looking at this. And
yeah, that guy looks like the guy from Series of Unfortunate Events.
That's incredible. Nonverbal acting goes hand in hand with physical acting. And for a really long time, I kind of rolled my eyes at the idea of physical comedy because when I thought about it, I just thought about Lele Pons falling down. And technically, yes, that counts, but there's so much more to physicality. The way your character walks, that's a choice. Whether it's Michael Cera embodying an entire personality with this defeated slouch, or it's kind of weird, the boss from Emily in Paris. I know, it's a terrible
Never heard that
show,
one.
but I am fascinated by this actress's choice to always walk around with like T-Rex arms, and then it hit me. Powerful people are always pointing at stuff. Rachel, I love your haircut. Matthew, no smoking in here. Can't you read the sign? And so, I guess it's more convenient to keep your hands up here, always ready to point. Okay, a better example of physicality that I love.
I think it's just their mental disabilities. I matter more than everyone else.
Kieran Culkin as Roman Roy. There's a scene where he accidentally sends a dick pic to his father during a work meeting. His acting in the rest of this episode is so beautiful. Not because of anything he says. Honestly, I don't remember a single word of dialogue from this, but I will always remember the way he shrinks into his chair. The way his face contorts and his eyes well up. You can see him actively trying to escape his body. Like maybe if he curls up enough, his body will fold into itself and disappear, but he can't. He's stuck. And all of the smugness and arrogance that has built up for him over the course of the season is whisked away in a matter of seconds.
Introducing Topo Chico Hard Seltzer, crafted with minerals for a crisp taste.
Depending on what role you have, physicality could also be your ability to dance or do action sequences. Obviously not the ones with stunt doubles, the ones where they see your face, so you gotta do it yourself. Not every actor is good at everything, and you can't just sub someone in for one scene, so it's no small feat when someone is able to check every box. I think there's a lot of roles you can look at through this lens and maybe view differently. Like, it's easy to say that Hayden Christensen pooped the bed in the Star Wars prequels because of how robotically all of his lines were delivered. But in his defense, I think a lot of that had more to do with George Lucas's
I was thinking for a long time, who does this guy remind me of? I think it's the guy from that show, the YouTube thing, or the meme. I am upset and my day is ruined. Yeah, that guy. That looks like him.
to write regular human dialogue.
The dialogue was a little bit difficult. I remember there was one line that I just begged him to take out of the screenplay, and he finally did. My line was, "But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Soas, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault." And I thought, who talks like this, George?
A lot of Hayden's physical acting was really good. The choreographed fights, some of his facial expressions, where you could really see on his face.
Yeah, I was never a fan of the dialogue in those movies.
And you maybe even start to feel some empathy. The problem is, then he goes on the whole sand rant, and he kind of kills the vibe. But did he write that? No, George wrote that. And George managed to make Natalie Portman look like a bad actress, and she won an Oscar like 5 years after this movie, so I don't think that's on her.
Suddenly I'm afraid.
A similar character, but on the opposite end of the spectrum for me, is Toby Maguire. Like, probably...
He is the best. I love Toby Maguire.
A similar character, but on the opposite end of the spectrum for me, is Toby Maguire. Like probably 100 million other people, I recently went back and rewatched the Sam Raimi trilogy, and I had always thought Toby was really good in these movies. But watching it now, I realize he's really good at playing Peter Parker. He's not very good at playing Spider-Man. The dude pulls off the sad, lonely nerd character.
What are you
like
talking
nobody's
about?
business. But when he's not crying or actively becoming a meme, he kind of always talks the same. He always talks really quietly for some reason.
Look at little Goblin Jr.
I'm gonna avenge Uncle Ben. And I'm gonna kill Eric Foreman. Not to...
No, that is not quite true. He yells sometimes, he talks normally, like... the thing is, when he changes, like, personas, is like, kind of like the Green Goblin thing, like, he's always trying to sound the same way as in, like, one mode, so to say. But yeah, I think he killed in the new Spider-Man movie
To beat a dead
and 1, 2, and 3.
horse, because obviously a ton of people have talked about why Spider-Man 3 was a disappointment. But in order for a trilogy like this
What?
to work, there needs
What? Spider-Man 3 was what? Kowalski, analysis report.
people talk about why Spider-Man 3 was a disappointment. But
The what? That does not make sense to me.
in order for a trilogy like this to work, there needs to be more growth exhibited from the main character. And I just don't know if Toby as an actor was capable of doing that. Last Star Wars example, I promise. But to me, the gold standard of this will always be Mark Hamill. You ever go back and watch the very first Star Wars? Luke Skywalker is a little bitch in this movie.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
And then a couple years later, he's gone through some transformative experiences, and he's a total badass. He's cool as hell. If he was the same stinky little goofball the whole time, it would have ruined the series. Imagine if instead of showing up to fight Emperor Palpatine with a shiny new robot hand and a shit ton of confidence, he just like grew out his hair a little bit and moped in the corner. I'll take down the Empire when you fix this damn door. In short,
That's not a comparison. They're completely different styles of doing things, bro.
a lot of actors are good at some things, but very few are versatile enough to be good at everything. And that brings me to
Tom Hanks.
Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston has played two of my favorite characters in two of my favorite shows, won awards doing both, and they could not be more different. Having watched Malcolm in the Middle like 100 times, I always thought that I wouldn't be able to take Breaking Bad seriously because I would only be able to see Hal. Hal is a...
Hey, Ma. The guy, the who plays Walter White is a guy from Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah.
He's the dad.
Hmm.
Bryan Cranston.
Alright.
total pushover. He's scared of everything, he gets really fixated on random obsessions, and in spite of his good intentions, he always tends to make situations worse. But more than anything else, he just loves his family, especially his wife, and it's one of the most wholesome and endearing characters on TV.
Just so you know,
needs a
Damien,
father figure, and I really think it should be me.
Walter
I
White
heard.
is not. Bryan's physical comedy is so good in Malcolm in the Middle, and he has some signature mannerisms that every once in a while would seep into Walter, but for the most part, these two characters are so different that it doesn't even seem like the same actor. Through an unfortunate series of dominoes, Walter transforms into essentially the main villain of the show, but it's such a slow process that it doesn't feel unnatural. From the beginning, you can see the seeds planted, you can see some of that anger in his eyes, and as his situation gets worse and he does his best to survive it,
I feel that the point of the show isn't to show him as an antagonist or like a villain, but as someone who has been failed by the system. I guess it depends what lens you put on.
in order to avoid the danger, he has to become the danger. Walter and the audience, to an extent, can rationalize just about every fucked up thing he does. But there will come a point where you suddenly realize, yeah, I'm not rooting for this guy anymore. He's done way too much. He's the BoJack Horseman of drug dealers. A happy ending is possible, but does this guy even deserve it? And that slow, organic shift is really impressive to watch. Not just from the writers, but from Bryan Cranston as well. Aside from all the obvious big moments throughout the show, one of my favorite scenes early on was between him and Gretchen, a character played by Jessica Heck. Up until this point, she'd only been in 2 other episodes. She was barely established on screen, and all we really knew was this vague history between her and Walt, which makes it all that more impressive, the amount of tension they have in this scene. It's like we've been watching them go at it for years, but they've only been on screen together for like 10 minutes up until this point.
The thing I love about the show is how, like, awkward it can make you feel in the awkward scenes, and then how tense it can make you in the tense scenes. Like, most things I can be like, it's just acting. For some reason, it's just not like that.
It's incredible.
I feel so sorry for you, Walt.
Fuck you.
You ever watch a performance so good that all you can do is laugh? Because your body doesn't know how else to express how that made you feel, so you just let out an involuntary chuckle. This show had so many moments of that for me, from Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, Bill Allen as scientists, and it's all a good example of how acting, writing, and
the show does have a bit of comedy, seeing as the fact that Bill Burr directed the show.
directing all go hand in hand. There are directors who have made great actors look bad. There's writing that's so clever that just about anyone who delivers the line is going to seem like a genius. And there's some actors who are so good in a role that it forces the showrunner to reconsider their entire plan. Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die in season 1, but then Vince Gilligan
What?
saw how well Aaron and Bryan worked together, and he was like, you know what?
Ma. Apparently, Jesse is supposed to die in season 1, but then his acting was so good that the directors were like, you know what, let's keep him for the rest of the show.
I told you people appreciated the acting.
Well, yeah, the people who are around them every day for years to be able to record and stuff. It was in the middle of season 1. It's not like the public saw like way too much. They like recorded scenes and stuff and then decided. It's not like public had any say.
Well, I didn't know who, I don't know if you're talking about, like...
Morgana keeps tripping me. Oh,
I think because it's almost dinner time.
it's virtually dinner time.
Actually, maybe not. And it's
Wait, what?
consider their entire plan. Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die in season 1, but then Vince Gilligan saw how well Aaron and Bryan worked together, and he was like, you know what? Actually, maybe not. And it's a good thing they didn't.
Oh, I was very confused. I thought you said what he said, and then was like, actually, maybe not.
Because by the end of the show, are you really rooting for anyone besides Jesse? All right, so
Mr. White.
I guess the last topic I want to touch on is this ongoing debate about the validity of method acting. Essentially, method acting is when someone stays in character all the time because they think it'll make them act better.
Oh, like Ace Ventura. Sorry, no. Jim Carrey from Ace Ventura and stuff
I
like
don't have
that.
too much of a concrete feeling about this either way. I think generally speaking, whatever works, you know, just do the best
I mean,
job
it
you can.
kind of drove him
Stories
crazy,
about
though.
actors who are playing villains, so they just treat everyone like shit all the time, because that's what my character would do. And that's where it's like, okay, maybe you're just using this as an excuse to be a dick.
So I always say about people who do method acting, you only ever see people doing the method when they're playing an asshole.
Maybe instead you could do what everyone else does and just do your job and then go home and be normal. I think what it comes down to for me is whether or not the performance you're getting warrants whatever nonsense you're pulling on set. Like, in my opinion, Jeremy Strong is giving the performance of a lifetime as Kendall Moore. But as an actor, he is very much an anomaly on that set with the way he goes through his process. He's notoriously not very fun to be around. He takes everything way too seriously. And there are other incredible actors on set who are able to access a similar level of performance without being a wet blanket. But ultimately, he never seems to cross a line. And if that's what it takes for him to pull this off, then just let the results speak for themselves. But then you have other examples of method acting, like Jared Leto as the Joker, doing insane things to his coworkers because, sorry, Jared's not here right now. This is how the Joker would act.
Who did you send used condoms to?
Oh, everybody.
Yeah, he sent used condoms, sticky Playboy magazines.
I can't even begin to tell you the weird things I got.
I mean, the Joker is somebody who doesn't really respect things like personal space or boundaries.
So he's going around actively being a nuisance to everyone. And to make it worse, his performance wasn't even that good. I don't know if this was worth being an asshole for 4 months, dude. One thing you'll hear a lot about method actors is the people they worked with on the movie saying, oh, I never met that guy. I only met the character he was playing. It's like, that's cool, I guess. I admire the commitment. But it's one of those things that better work, otherwise the ends do not justify the means. Anyway, as is the case in all
ends don't justify the means if the ends don't justify the means.
of my stream of consciousness video essays, I don't really know how to end this, so let's do a lightning round. Reservation Dogs, one of my favorite new shows. There's such a talented cast, but Sarah Podemski is probably the highlight for me as well as Mose and Miko, who are so goddamn funny every time they're on screen. Betsy Brandt is Marie. Holy shit, she nails this character. The overly nosy extended family member who has to know everything and also can't keep a secret. The fact that most people have probably met someone exactly like this is what makes it so good. But if I were to narrow down my Mount Rushmore of acting to just one person, it wouldn't be Bryan Cranston, or Meryl Streep, or Morgan Freeman, or Marlon Brando,
Morgan
or Adam
Freeman's pretty
Driver,
good.
or the guy who plays Mayhem in the Allstate commercials. It would be
Jake from State Farm.
Kevin, your dog just died.
Talk about subtlety? You want to talk about some non-verbal acting? That man did not even have to say a word. He barely had to move his face muscles. So you can feel the sadness through the screen. I kind of feel like my dog just died. That's sad. I'm crying. Anyway, I think he deserves it. I'm going to be giving him my Streamy Award because I feel like he's not getting enough appreciation for this, and I'm getting too much. I've only posted one video this year, and it's about Christmas movies, so I don't deserve it. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about that. If you like this video and you want to support my channel, stick around while I tell you about today's sponsor.
Part of it was good, part of it was bad. Overall, it was fine video. Definitely could have been better. I didn't agree with some of the things he said, but no one completely agrees with anyone. Unless they're like complete copycats who change what they think just because someone else thinks it. Don't like this type of people.